What was it like to live in the Akkadian Empire? Hello everybody and welcome to Ancient Insights. In my last video, I discussed the rise and fall of Akkadian Empire and the reign of Naram-Sin. The link to that video is in my description. Please stay with me. Before we continue, kindly take a moment to give me your honest feedback on this video. Thank you. The Akkadian period is generally dated to about 2334 BC to 2154 BC, according to the Middle Chronology timeline of the ancient Near East, or about 2270 BC to 2083 BC, according to the Short Chronology timeline of the ancient Near East. It was preceded by the early dynastic period of Mesopotamia and succeeded by the early Third period, although both transitions are blurry. For example, it is likely that the rise of Sargon of Akkad coincided with the late Ed period, and seems that the final Akkadian kings ruled simultaneously with the Gutian kings alongside rulers at the city-state of both Uruk and Lagash. The Akkadian period is contemporary with other periods in Israel, Turkey, and Syria. What was it like to live in the Akkadian Empire? Future Mesopotamian states compared themselves to the Akkadian Empire, which they saw as a classical standard in governance. The economy was dependent on irrigated farmlands of southern Iraq and rain-fed agriculture of northern Iraq. There was often a surplus of agriculture but shortages of other goods such as metal ore, timber, and building stone. Acts of the period often focused on kings and depicted somber and grim conflict and subjugation to divinities. Sumerians and Akkadians were bilingual in each other's language, but Akkadian gradually replaced Sumerian. The empire had a postal service and a library featuring astronomical observations. The Empire of Akkad collapsed in 2154 BC, within 180 years of its founding. The collapse ushered in a Dark Age period of regional decline that lasted until the rise of the Third Dynasty of Ur in 2112 BC. But how was the economy of the Akkadian Empire? The population of Akkad, like nearly all pre-modern states, was entirely dependent upon the agricultural system of the region, which seemed to have had two principal centers: the irrigated farmlands of southern Iraq that traditionally had a yield of 30 grains return for each grain sown, and the rain-fed agriculture of northern Iraq, known as the Upper Country. Southern Iraq during Akkadian period seemed to have been approaching its modern rainfall levels of less than 20 millimeters per year, with the result that agriculture was totally dependent upon irrigation. For the Akkadian period, the progressive salinization of the soils produced by poorly drained irrigation had been reducing yields of wheat in the southern part of the country, leading to the conversion to more salt-tolerant barley growing. Urban populations there had peaked already by 2600 BC, and demographic pressures were high, contributing to the rise of militarism, apparently immediately before the Akkadian period, as seen in the Stele of the Vultures of Eannatum. Warfare between city-states had led to a population decline, from which Akkad provided a temporary respite. It was this high degree of agricultural productivity in the south that enabled the growth of the highest population densities in the world at this time, giving Akkad its military advantage. The water table in this region was very high and replenished regularly by winter storms in the headwaters, Tigris and Euphrates, from October to March, and from snow melt from March to July. Flood levels that had been stable from about 3000 to 2600 BC had started falling, and by the Akkadian period were half meter to a meter lower than recorded previously. Even so, the flat country and weather uncertainties made flooding much more unpredictable than in the case of the Nile. Serious deluges seem to have been a regular occurrence, requiring constant maintenance of irrigation ditches and drainage systems. Farmers were recruited into regiments for this work from August to October, a period of food shortage under the control of city temple authorities, thus acting as a form of unemployment relief. Gwendoline Lake has suggested that this was Sargon's original employment for the king of Kish, giving him experience in effectively organizing large groups of men. A tablet reads, Sargon, the king, to whom Enlil permitted no rival. 5,400 warriors ate bread daily before him. Harvest was in the late spring and during the dry summer months. Nomadic Amorites from the northwest would pasture their flocks of sheep and goats to graze on the crop residue and be watered from the river and irrigation canals. For this privilege, they would have to pay a tax in wool, meat, milk, and cheese to the temples, who would distribute these products to the bureaucracy and priesthood. In good years, all would go well, but in bad years, wild winter pastures would be in short supply. Nomads would seek to pasture their flocks in the grain fields, and conflict with farmers would result. It would appear that the subsidizing of southern population by the import of wheat from the north of the empire temporarily overcame this problem, and it seems to have allowed economic recovery and a growing population within this region. The foreign trade. As a result, Sumer and Akkad had a surplus of agricultural product but was short of almost everything else, particularly metal ores, timber, and building stone, all of which had to be imported. The spread of the Akkadian state as far as the Silver Mountain, possibly the Taurus Mountain, and the cedar of Lebanon and the copper deposit of Megan was largely motivated by the goal of securing control over this import. One tablet reads, Sargon, the king of Kish, triumphed in 34 battles over the cities up to the edge of the sea and destroyed their walls. He made the ships from the Meluha, the ships from Megan, and the ships from Dilmon tie up alongside the quay of Agade. Sargon the king prostrated himself before the god, Dagon, and made supplication to him. And he, Dagon, gave him the upper hand, namely Mari, Yamuti, and Ebla, up to the cedar forest and up to the Silver Mountains. International trade developed during the Akkadian period. Indus-Mesopotamian relations also seem to have expanded. Sargon of Akkad of about 2300 to 2250 BC was the first Mesopotamian ruler to make an explicit reference to the region of Meluha, which is generally understood as being the Baluchistan or the Indus area. What are your thoughts on this video? Which of this period do you think is important or most interesting period in the Akkadian Empire? In your view, what do you think led to the collapse of this civilization? Kindly leave your thought in comment. Please let me know what you think about my accents and the narration on this video. Like and share with friends and family if you enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Enable notification for more insightful videos on ancient history and archaeology. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Peace.